we're very grateful to have Mr. Melendez along with activist Judy Caruso here with us this evening in Olympia. They're on a statewide tour to educate people about the death penalty. And Mr. Melendez has been gracious enough to speak this evening to us for free, but we're really hoping that through donations we can cover his travel expenses, and they came up from New Mexico, so travel expenses and his usual honorarium. So we have, let's see, during question and answers, he'll speak for about 50 minutes, and then during a question and answer period, we're going to pass around some baskets, which you can put any donations into. And if you'd like to write a check, you can just make it out to Juan Melendez. And also, if you'd like to donate to our committee, check with the committee folks back at the table in the back. There's another basket out there, and that would be for donations to our committee. But anything you put in the baskets that go around, or some other baskets out by the door if you need to leave early, will go completely to Mr. Melendez and his efforts. Let's see, so Mr. Melendez was innocent of the crime he was convicted of, and he spent nearly 18 years on death row in Florida. And when he was released in 2002, this made him the 99th death row inmate in the country to be exonerated and released due to innocence since 1973. And he was number 99, and you have to remember that number is a lot bigger now. And since his release, Mr. Melendez has traveled throughout the world sharing his story. And those who have heard him always talk about the courage and the faith and the forgiveness that his story is about, that it represents. But we also want to remember an important from his story, just about the ongoing problems with the death penalty, that we use all over this country and right here in Washington State. So at that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Juan Melendez.
My name is Juan Roberto Mele. Before I start, I want to thank all of you for coming over here. I want to thank Miss Emmy and the organization that made this event possible. I want to thank Judy Caruso, who traveled with me most of the time doing this work, and of course, God and all of you. My name is Juan Roberto Melendez. I am the number 99 person in the nation to be released and exonerated from Florida death row for a crime I did not commit. It's 138 of us. There has been 1,260 plus executions, many of them in the state of Texas. And only God knows how many of them did not have the luck that I had and the rest of 137. Also, as I tell my story, you feel like cry. And you feel like laughing, please laugh. I love smiling faces. The only favor I ask for all of you is this. Please don't fall asleep on me. It was a beautiful day. Got it. It was on a Monday, May the 2nd, 1984. While my co-workers and I was eating lunch on the apple tree, we hear noise in the orchards that did not belong to the orchards. 8 police cars right in the hills, FBI agents. And they stopped in front of us. And they came out of the car with weapons pointing at us. And they told us to hit the ground, and we did. Then they called my name, but I'm scared to get up because of the weapons that was pointing at me. But I raised my arms. Then they told me to get up and walk toward them, and I did. When I got in front of them, they told me to open my mouth. They wanted to see if I had a missing tooth. I showed it to them. The tooth is still missing. Then they told me to roll the sleeves from my shirt, from my left arm. They want to see a tattoo, and I showed it to them. Then they say, yes, you are the man we are looking for. You are wanted for unlawfully fly to avoid prosecution with warrants for your arrest for first-degree murder and armed robbery in the state of Florida. So they read me some rights, and they slapped some handcuffs on me, and they told me in a police car, and they took me to a federal prison. A week or so after my arrival, they took me to court in front of the magistrate, a federal judge. And he was talking about extradition. But I did not know what extradition means. I was naive to the law, naive to the language. This is the type of English I knew at that time. If I say 5 words in English, believe me, my friends, 3 of them would be cuss words. So the board interpreted to me to explain to me what extradition means. And all he told me in Spanish was, you either waive it or fight it. They're going to take you back anyway. So I started thinking, I'm not a killer. My mama did not raise no killers. I will waive it. And as soon as they see this ugly face in Florida, they will let me go. But how wrong I was. So I waived extradition in the state. I moved from the state of Pennsylvania all the way back to the state of Florida. A week or so after my arrival, they took me to court in front of a judge. And he was reading the charges to me. You've been indicted, arrested for first-degree murder and armed robbery, and the state of Florida is seeking the death penalty against you, the electric chair. A week or so after that, they took me right back to court with the same judge, this time to court appoint a lawyer for me, a public defender. The truth is, I'm not O.J. Simpson. I don't have money to hire lawyers. This public defender, I cannot hardly understand what he's saying because they never give me an interpreter. But he used to pat me in the back and tell me that everything is going to be all right. You're going home. I didn't understand that going home stuff. I should go home. I did not commit the crime. So now we're going to trial. Monday, we start picking the jury. Tuesday, we're still picking jury. And after they pick 11 whites and 1 African-American person, no Hispanic, and I'm Hispanic, they read instruction to the jury how to conduct themselves in a capital murder case with the sinking, the death penalty. Wednesday, that's when the evidence come in. And this is what they had against me. They have what they call a police informant, what they call in the streets a snitch. He claimed that I confessed the crime to him. This police informant, this snitch, also implicates another friend of mine in the crime. He gets arrested, he gets interrogated, he makes 15 statements, he incriminates himself in the crime. He gets charged with it. First-degree murder, armed robbery, and they threaten him with electric chair. It's time to make a deal. You see, prosecutors in the United States, they make deals with criminals. So he was able to strike a deal with the state. He gets his first-degree murder charge dropped. He gets his armed robbery charge dropped. All the way to after the fast. No more tests of the He gets 2 years probation with 2 years he already had. And basically what he's saying trial was, I picked him up, took him to the scene of the crime, dropped him off, came an hour and a half later, picked him up again, took him home, don't know what happened, till after it happened. That's the entire evidence against me. No physical evidence against me. There's the testimony of 2 questionable witnesses with a criminal record from coast to coast. 2 questionable witnesses that make deals with the prosecutor. And they give rewards and leniencies for their own crimes they commit. This is what I had on my favor. On the defense side, I have what you call an alibi witness. I have 4 witnesses corroborating the alibi testimony. I had other witnesses testifying, saying that the police informant, the snitch, had a grudge against me. But I had a problem. Every witness that I had on my side was from the African-American race. A black woman, a black man. And when a black woman and a black man testified for the state, for the prosecutor, all of a sudden they got good credibility. They even dressed them. I never saw my co-defender with a 3-piece suit on. I never saw my co-defender with a clean shave. In the streets, they used to call him the wolf. I never saw my, but when a black man and when a black woman testify for the defense on my side, also the credibility is gone. Thursday, they found me guilty. Friday, the same week, they sent me to death. And the judge complained that it was taking too long. When they sent me to death, my heart got full of hate. I hated the judge, and I hated that one that packed me in the back. My trial defense lawyer, because I failed. He betrayed me. But overall, I thought we Puerto Rican men was too much, man. I found out different. I was scared, very scared to die for a crime I did not commit. So now I'm going to death row. It was an ugly day. I never forgot it. It was on a Tuesday, November the 2nd, 1984. The place was horrified. It was dark. It was cold. And they keep me in a 6x9 foot cell. And every time they move me out of that cell for whatever reasons, I got shackles in my legs, chains in my waist, and handcuffs in my wrists. The place was also infected with rats and roaches. So they threw me down in the bottom floor. 17 condemned row prisoners in the bottom floor. 17 in the third, 17 in the second, 17 in the third. And I made the 248 condemned men to death in the state of Florida, and they reinstated the death penalty in the nation in 1976. The food. They put the food in the car, and they wheeled that car in the floor, and the wind went. And breakfast, oh, that's the worst one. But not because of the food. I love Christian eggs. It's because they come real early, and they never wake you up. And they place their food tray, and the fact that you have in your cell door, like a big mail slot. And if you wait 5 seconds, then you walk to get up and get that tray, forget about it. You have ran out of luck. You see, the roaches ain't beat you to it. They waiting for the breakfast too. And it get cold in northern Florida. And the suppliers with a thin blanket. And I take that blanket and I cover myself from foot, face, and all. I don't want to see nothing. But the rats, they also get cold. And they want to get warm. So they climb that blanket. And I can feel that rat that's rolling open now. And I don't want to look at him. Because if I look at him, I'm not going to be able to sleep. But when that rat stays still in my chest, and he's not moving, I get a good grip with the blanket. And I shake it hard as I can. And I can hear that rat hit the floor. Boom! It's a big one. So I ran over there on a Tuesday. Not that Thursday. The following Thursday, they executed the 10th person in the state of Florida. When I leave that place, 51, today, 68, 69, I'm still coming. But when they executed that 10th person, I got super scared. You see, I do not know the language that well. I do not know the process. I'm lost in there. So the thoughts in my mind is, they're killing people here every week. How long is going to be before they get me? So I know how it works. And I know all this exercise. You can keep your muscle flexible, you can defend yourself. So I'm thinking, if they come over here to get me, I'm just going to fight them. I'm not walking to that chair. The truth is, when I think about it, I'm scared of electricity anyway. So now I have to come up with a plan. And I decide to take the sheets from my book. And I pull them out and I cut them all in pieces. And I make little ropes with it. And I take these little ropes
and I tie the sailboat bars. You see the sailboat bars, they slide like this. I tie all these things. When they push the boat in that control room, that boat ain't moving nowhere. So I'm thinking, by the time they come all these ropes up, I can give me a Google mom. And when they come and give me, I'm just going to defend myself. So the doors is all tied up. And it's around count time. And I'm doing exercise. I'm trying to make muscles coming out of my eyebrows. You see, I'm trying to scare these people. I'm trying to intimidate these people. But all the time, I'm the one intimidated. I'm the one scared. So the door's all tied up. Here comes this correction officer doing his count time. He's a big African-American person. Big, strong black man. He had muscle in his eyebrows. So when you see the door so tied up, he gets angry and he starts cursing. Melendez, why you have the door so tied up? And he cursed and cursed and cursed. I do not know too much English, but I know how to curse. So in a very, very bad way, I remind him of his mother, father, all the way down. So me and this correction office, we just causing each other out. And the rest of the condemned stood there. They got involved in the argument. But to my surprise, he was against me. They tell me that I'm wrong. So now I get angry with them. And I tell them the best way I can. I know they're killing people here every week. And we ain't doing nothing. We're supposed to fight these people. We're supposed to burn the place down. We Puerto Ricans don't go out like that doing nothing. We fight. They still told me that I was a fool. They told me that I was crazy. They told me that all I do is get up in the morning, get in the sailboat bars, and nap, and curse, and cry about my innocence. Then they told me that I did not know how to read, I did not know how to write, and I did not know how to speak English. And then they told me there must be a few things I could hear at that time. They told me they would teach me. The worst of the worst. There's more things they say, hated people in this nation. They want us to prosecute come monsters of this Puerto Rican. How to read, how to write, and how to speak English. If they would never taught me, I would never survive that place. I would not be able to communicate better with my lawyers. I would not be able to reply the letters that so many pen pals wrote me. Some of them from this great state of Washington. Show me so much love, so much compassion that make me feel like a human being. And today, I will not be able to share with all of you this sad story. I spent 17 years, 8 months, and 1 day in Florida death row for a crime I did not commit. After 10 years, I was tired of it. I want out of there. But the only way out is to commit suicide. And believe me, lots of my friends committed suicide. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. They got what they call a runner. A runner is an inmate that's doing time in prison population. He's not sentenced to death. And they give this inmate, this runner, at a prison population so he can do the work in the death row place. You see, the correctional officers, they don't do nothing. All they do is watch you. And some of them give you a hard time when they can. This runner, this inmate, is not sentenced to death. He's the one that supplies us with the food, the toothpaste, the toothbrush, the toilet paper, the soap. They mop with the broom so you can clean yourself. He also can supply you with a tool that you can take your life with. And he knows it. All you got to do is give him 4 stamps. Or if I can sing a rolling paper tobacco, the cheap kind, and he will give you this tool. He has to do it because these items that are dismantled are more important to him than your own life. Or perhaps to do it because he called himself assisting you, helping you. He knows you want out of there. He works there. He knows that their road is hell. The tool is real simple. It's a garbage plastic bag. The one you see in the garbage can, the strong kind. You reinforce stamps in. When the correction officer is looking, he will swing that bag inside yourself. You take that bag in, you tie it up, and you make a rope. Then you put a noose in it. You put the noose in your neck, and you tie the other ends in the silver bars. You throw yourself down. You dead, but you're free. That's what the demons used to tell me. Why? Why you got to go through all of this? You're supposed to be a Puerto Rican man, a real macho man. Don't satisfy them, satisfy yourself. You say you didn't do it. You think they're going to believe you? They're going to kill you anyway. So grab that bag. And that thoughts staying in my mind. I never see my friends kill themselves because I cannot see through the wall. But I see when they will the body out. Something in the back of my head tells me, you're not going to look at your friend for the last time. So I have a mirror in myself. And I grab it, I take it, I stretch my arms to the bars with it, and I look. And this is what I see. I see a purple blue face that do not look like my friend. I get to see something else too. I get to see the noose in his neck because they never take it out. And that stays in my mind. So now I want to take this trip. You see, I'm tired of it. I want out of there. I'm depressed. So I thought they're going to give me that garbage bag. So I give him those stamps in. And when the guard is looking, he swings that bag inside my cell. And I take that bag and I use it for rope and I made a rope. Then I put a noose in it. Then I look at my bone. And I look at the rope. And I say to myself, I better lay down and think about this a little bit more. So I take that rope that is made to take my life and I throw it over the bone. So when the guards walk by, they don't see it. Lay down. When I lay down, I fall in a deep, deep, deep sleep. And I start dreaming that I'm a little kid again, doing the things I used to do when I was a little kid. The things that make me happy. The things that make me smile. You see, I'm born in Brooklyn, New York, but I raised in the island of Puerto Rico. They took me back when I was just a little kid. And when I get up in the morning and I look to the east side, it's a wonderful mountain. And if I walk 6 minutes to the side, I find myself in the most beautiful beach in the world. It is to me. So here I am, dreaming that I'm swimming in the beautiful Caribbean Sea. The water is warm. The sun is bright. The sky is blue. The palm trees look so good. It's a beautiful day. Then I get to see something that I never saw before. 4 dolphins coming my way. And they pass me. Then they turn around. And a pair got on one side. And a pair got on another side. And they start creeping and jumping like dolphins do. I'm having a ball in there. I'm so happy. Then I look to the shore, and it's a beautiful lady waving at me, smiling at me. And she seems so happy. And I know why she's happy. She's happy because I'm happy. That's my dear mother. And then I wake up. When I wake up, the bones smell like a peach. So I grabbed that book that is meant to take my life with. And I go straight to the toilet with it. And I look at the toilet. And I look at the door. And I say real loud, I don't want to die. And I flush it. But the true fact is, it was lots of beautiful dreams. Every time I got depressed, every time I went out of there, every time suicide thoughts came into my mind, I would pray to God, send me a beautiful dream. And I was wise enough to grab all them dreams like a sign of hope that one day I will be out of there, I will be free. Like God was telling me, hey, I know you didn't do it, but I control the time. You get out. When I say you get out, you just got to trust me. And when I understand everything, I come to one conclusion. It took 17 years, 8 months, and 1 day to also change the man. The death penalty. The death penalty is a law made by human beings and carried out by human beings. And we all know, we humans, we make mistakes. The death penalty is also a law that brings a lot of suffering, a lot of pain on both sides of the families. On the family victims of homicides, the family of the woman and man that's condemned to death. Well, family is concerned, this is all I have. Mama and 5 aunts. Oh, I got brothers. I got sisters. I got uncles. I got lots of cousins. But they never wrote me a letter. Mama and 5 aunts. I do not know how the aunts are in this generation. But in my generation, when I was growing up, if my aunt caught me doing something wrong, believe me, it's going to be a good spanking. And then I got to pray to God that she don't tell Mama. Because when she tells Mama, it's going to be another good spanking. But when I was hungry, my aunts always feed me. When I needed a pair of pants, shoes, and shirt, my aunts always bought it for me. I didn't dare wrong. They never forgot me. They wrote me lots of letters. They sent me lots of pictures, photos of the ones that were born and I never seen. And I saw all of them grow up to pictures. They believe in keeping their family together. And Mama, I have to tell you, I believe she suffered more than anybody. She also wrote me lots of letters. They give me so much hope and faith that helped me keep the will to live. Well, there's one letter that I keep with me all the time. And when I'm down, sad, weak, I read it. And it always boosts me up. And it goes like this. She wrote and say, son, I just built an altar. In that altar, I put the statue of the Virgin of the Guadalupe in it. And I called roses, and I put it in it. And I prayed 3 rosaries a day, singing, searching, looking for a miracle. And that miracle will come soon, because I know you're innocent, and God knows that you're innocent. But you got to put all your trust in God, and one day, He will set you free. 17 years, 8 months, 1 day later, it took too long. That miracle came true. Thank God for that. And this I found out a few days after I've been out. I went to my mama's room and I noticed that tears was dropping down her cheeks. And I said, Mama, what's wrong? She said, son, in spite that all that faith and hope that I have in God and the vision of the Guadalupe, for all them years, for all the long, long years, I was saving money to bring your dead body back to the island of Puerto Rico in Florida, in the state of Florida, will have execution. And no mother in this world should go to that pain. The conditions, very especially the medical condition and the type of people that run these places. Oh, you better not get sick in there. You see, they love to use common sense. And the common sense is always against you. Why give you, a person condemned to death, the best medication? When the governor can sign their warrant today and kill you tomorrow. Why waste the best medication in somebody that's condemned to death? In order for you to comprehend or understand the conditions, especially the medical conditions and the type of people that work in these places, unfortunately, I have to share with all of you another sad story. We go to the yard 4 hours a week. 2 hours on a Monday, 2 hours on a Wednesday. If it's not raining, all you got to see is a dark cloud in the sky. Inclement weather today. No yard, no recreation, no exercise. And it's not one drop of rain falling. But this Monday we all went. The ones that told me how to read, how to write, how to speak English. But very particularly this African-American person, this black man. I call him brothers. They all told me how to read, how to write, how to speak English. But this one I had, he was pushing me. You need to learn this. You need to learn that. And I love him dear for that. Because I learned a lot from him. The brothers, they love to play basketball. Some others, they play volleyball. I make weights. Because I can burn steam and go back to the cell and rest a little bit better. So my brother's playing basketball. And all of a sudden he falls to the ground. We stopped what we was doing and ran close to him. And when I got close to him, I noticed that white foam was coming out of his mouth and nose. So I assumed, this got to be a stroke, a heart attack. So we tell the guards in the gate, you have a man down there that need medical assistance. Take the time with a walkie-talkie. They call the clinic. And here comes the so-called nurse. It's a tall white man with a big great belly. And they let him inside the gate. And they told us in the yard to put our back to the fence. And from the gun towers, they put machine guns out. And you better not move, they will shoot you. So now they're going to let the so-called nurse inside the yard. And I noticed that he had no medical bag. But he had something. He had about a half a pound of chewing tobacco in his mouth. And you can see the blood stories running to the side. And every once in a while, he spits. He is in the yard now. There is a brother in the ground. So we tell him, he's not breathing. He needs air. And then the nurse said, I got to go back to the clinic and get an oxygen tank. And he spits. So the nurse walks real slow with his arrogant and proud. Come back. Walking real slow with his arrogant and proud. Back to the yard. Bends down with his oxygen tank and put it in my friend's mouth. Then the nurse jumps and we tell him, he's still not breathing. He needs air. Then the nurse said, I got to go back again to the clinic and get another oxygen tank. This one here is not working. And he spits. I say, you don't have to. You can do CPR, mouth to mouth. But telling one of them to do mouth to mouth to a brother in the ground, you wasting your time. So the nurse looks up. Then the nurse looks down. Then he made a statement using these two racist words. The M and the N. And I'm not going to put my mouth in there. And he says, I said, you don't have to. I do it. You just do the counting. And he agreed. I'm so glad he agreed. You see, I'm trying to save my friend's life. So I rush down there. I take my t-shirt off. And I went to wait for my friend got his mouth and nose. The so-called nurse is out counting. 1, 2, 3. And I blow air. 1, 2, 3. And I blow air again. 1, 2, 3. And I blow air. My friend opened his eyes. I'm so glad he opened his eyes. I see his sign of hope. He's gonna live. But all of a sudden, his eyes rolled back. And then he made a frown with his face and mouth. And I can see it right now because he never left me. Then he breathed real hard and air came out. I think that was his soul that left him because he died right in my arms. So now I'm angry. And I want to do something to that so-called nurse that let my friend die in the yard like a dog. And when I was finished swinging at him, here come the rest of the condemned men to death. Snatching out of there, throwing a gun, and they say, Puerto Rican Johnny, don't get in no trouble that you already are in. We got all those ways to handle this. I still go to confinement to the box for 90 days for the respected a member of the staff or instigating and right, whatever that means. But I learned a lesson. I learned that I have to sing, look, and trust something more powerful than the system. And the only thing I can see that's more powerful than the system is our Creator God. The truth is that they condemn man or woman to death that do not grab something spiritual, either go crazy or commit suicide. Some of them become Muslims and they praise Allah and they teach others how to read, how to write, how to speak English, how to respect. Some of them become Buddhists. Frankly, I don't know what they praise, but they teach others how to respect, how to love, how to forgive. Some of them become Christians. That's what I did. I went back to my roots and tried to remember everything my mama taught me about Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost. The truth is, she's Catholic to the bones. And this is my personal opinion. And only mine. I believe we're serving the same God with different names. And all we got to do is make good choices in life, do good deeds, and we'll not have no problem going to heaven. This friend of mine, at the state of Florida, let him die in the yard like a dog. 1 month after his death, he wins a new trial. By the state of Florida, letting my friend die in the yard like a dog. The state of Florida denied my friend his right to prove his innocence. So you know about the suffering and pain of the families, the suffering and pain of the condemned man and woman. You know about the condition, especially the medical condition and the type of people that work in these places. Let me tell you the worst. The worst is when they execute someone. When the government legally kills. You see, I'm in this cell. Next to me is another person that's condemned to death, just like me. That I know for 10 or 15 years, or maybe more. He cries in my shoulders. I cry in his. He shared with me the most intimate thoughts. I share mine with him. I let him to grow to love him. And one day, they snatch him out of that cell. And I know what's going to happen. They're going to kill him. And I cannot stop it. And my time is the electric chair. And they got to generate the chair with electricity. Because it's 2,010 volts that got to go through his body in order to get him killed. And I can hear this bossy sound. That still stays in my mind. And I know precisely the time when they burn the light out of him. Because the lights go on and off. And I still can stop it. And believe me, some of them are innocent. Like Jesse Tefar, Benny Dennis, Leo Jones, Pedro Medina, and my homeboy from Puerto Rico, by the state of Florida, on a 3-volume, offering him 5 years. He did not take it because he did not commit the crime. And because of his life, I'm here, Nieves Diaz. And all I can say is, I see you soon. What an awful sad story. Let me tell you how I got out of there. And I will tell you right from the jump. I was not saved by the system. I was saved in spite of the system. I was saved by the grace of God. Miracles. Here comes my turn, with tears running down her cheeks. And she tells me, Juan, I cannot handle the case no more. I say, why, Miss Gale? I don't need no new lawyers now. You know my case better than anybody. She said, you know why? I lost 5 clients. They are your friends. And no mistake what I'm saying, she lost 5 clients. It's 5 people, human beings, they got executed in the state of Florida, legally killed by the government. If you or anybody here are thinking about becoming a criminal lawyer, and I wish you will, we need you. Be careful with the death penalty cases. They can get to you. But then she said, don't worry about it, man. I'm going to get the agency to assign the 3 best lawyers they got and the best investigator. I finally got the 3. So here comes my new lawyer. And he said, Melendez, you have lost too many appeals. I said, tell me something new. Then he said, but we will try one more time. If you lose this one, you'll be lucky if you live 3 years. I said, if I lose this one, I'll be lucky if I live 1.5 years. You know who the governor of Florida is. He will have no problems in signing my death. So now his strategy was to get the investigator out, to go and see my trial defense lawyer, to see if they missed something. And the first vertigo occurred. My trial defense lawyer, remember the one used to patent the time, he just became a judge. And I thank God that he became a judge. You see, by him becoming a judge, it creates what they call in the legal world a conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest gave me the opportunity to move my case out of the Princess County, out of the county where they fabricated the case against me, out of the county where the Bureau Network operates. And it moves from Bartow, Polk County, Florida. And by the way, please don't go over there. It moves to Hillsborough County, Tampa, Florida. And it falls in the hands of a brave woman, a woman that wants to do the right thing. Honorable Judge Barbara Fletcher. I can sincerely say I owe that beautiful woman my life. So going back to the story with my investigator when I see my trial defense lawyer, the one that used to pat in the back, who just became a judge, he tells her, I'm a judge now. I have a new office. But in the old office where I used to do my defense work, I believe there's a box in there with the name Melendez wrote on it. You can go in there and have it. So she rushed over there to the old office, found that box, took that box to her office, went inside and dug out a tape cassette and she played it. Guess what? The confession of the real killer was in that tape cassette. And my trial defense lawyer, the one that used to pat me in the back, had it 1 month before trial. It's open a can of wounds now. The case is in the hands of a brave woman that was to do the right thing. And after Honorable Barbara Fletcher listened to the tape confession of the real killer, she immediately made a court order to the prosecution office. They want to prosecute me and demand that he send any papers, any files, any notes on my case. He had any to do so. And he did. Guess what? He had a transcript, a copy of the tape confession of the real killer. And he also had it 1 month before trial. But he had something else too. He has 16 documents that corroborated the tape confession of the real killer. 16 documents that he never turned in to trial defense lawyer at the time of the trial. What creates in the legal world a brand new rule violation will hold it exculpatory evidence that indicate that you did not commit the crime. By that time, I already had 3 eventuality hearings, and I was able to establish more than 20 witnesses that also corroborated the tape confession of the real killer, including the wife and sister of the real killer, including law enforcement officers, a former prosecuting investigator, a former FBI agent, criminal lawyers, friends of the real killer. In the end, even found physical evidence against the real killer. The real killer was also a police informant. So now Honorable Barbara Fletcher got all this ammunition. And she decided to write a 72-page opinion on it. And that 72-page opinion, she chastised the prosecutor for the way he handled the case. She chastised law investigators for the way they investigated the case. And she chastised them in that back in the back for the way God himself defended me. And she ordered me, granted me, a new trial. And she let him know that the case was terrible damage, implying that you have an innocent man in death row. The prosecutor decided not to process the case, drop the case, dismiss the case. And that's why I'm here. Thank God. Glory to him. They put shackles in my legs, chains in my waist, and handcuffs in my wrist. And they took me to a place they called the information room. They sent me in a chair in front of me, ndez, and behind the desk is a lady working on computers. And she started making some stupid, silly questions. She asked me for my social security number. I gave it to her. I went back home. Then she came up with some more serious, stupid questions. Where are you working at? What type of job? Who are you working for? And I must give her a real look. Because she got up in the chair she was sitting on and put both hands in the desk that was in front of me and looked straight in my eyes and she said, Melendez, you do not understand what's going on in here, do you? I say, lady, I don't have the slightest idea. I live across the streets. I've been in there for almost 18 years. I'm in death row. They don't have no jobs in death row. Then she said, she came real close to me, almost whispering in my ears. And she said, we are facing the paperwork. They're going to release you today. And I do not know if you watch cartoons. And you see this cartoon character. He takes a straw hammer. And hits the other one inside the head. Boom! And you can see that knife goes straight up. Then he has a green star that's going around his head. He's in a state of shock. But he's smiling. That's how it was. In a state of shock, but smiling. And I feel smiling today. Then the correction officers, they start acting different. They offer me soda puffs and sandwiches. I don't want a sandwich. I don't want a sandwich. I want to go back to my cell, pack everything up, and get out of here. Then I had to take physicals. And I was first for everything. I've never seen these people work so fast. Then they start calling me something they never called me before. They start calling me Mr. Melendez. And I like that. So now when they say, oh, packing everything up, and my cosmetics I give it to my friends because I can buy them in the streets, they cannot. And I want to say goodbye to the man in the last cell. And I'm in the cell next to last. And when I get out of the cell, I got tears rolling down my cheeks. I got a smile on my face. But when I got in front of him, I could not say nothing. You see, I was happy, but part of me still was sad because I leave them behind. The ones that told me how to read, how to write, how to speak English. The ones that told me in such a state how to let hate and anger go. And if we do not abolish the death penalty, I know they will kill us all. He had tears running down his cheeks. He had a big smile on his face, but he was able to talk. And the first word that came out of his mouth was just like this. Don't get on over there. Then he said, take care of yourself. Then he said, don't forget about us. And the last word he said was, take care of your mama. They all know my mama. This friend of mine that shared his kind words with me before I left, his name is Clarence Hill. He changed it to Rachad because he became a Muslim. He is a brother from Alabama. Unfortunately, only Wednesday, September the 20th, 2007, he was executed. May God bless his soul. So that's why every one of them was telling me the same thing. And before I get to that door that will lead me out of that floor, out of that wing, I hear a clap. Then I hear a second clap, and a third clap. They was making so much noise, clapping their hands, banging the bars, hollering and whistling, that the correction officer got angry with them and told them to shut up, to be quiet. They stopped making noise till I left that place. They was real happy to see me go. So now when they go, that will lead me to freedom. And when they open that door, this is what I saw. I saw a whole bunch of reporters. CNN, ABC, BBC, NBC, PBS. The whole letters of the alphabet wasn't there. And no offense, no due respect. But reporters sometimes they make some silly, stupid questions. The first one was, how do you feel? I feel good. I'm going home. Then come this female reporter with so more crazy questions. Where are you going? What you gonna do? What you wanna see? I told her that I wanna go to Disney World. I told her that it came naturally, it came from my heart. And they wrote it down just like I told her. I wanna see the moon. I wanna see the stars. I wanna walk on dirt, on grass. I wanna hold a little baby mom and play with her. Of course I told her. I want to talk to some beautiful women. That reporter I had in front of me, she was ugly. That's a joke. I'm my luck. I miss the things that we take for granted, the simple things in life. I cannot understand the people in the free world when they tell me they're bored. When God creates so many things for us that we can enjoy, take care, and love. So many good deeds, so many good choices we can make in life. And speaking about good deeds and good choices, I have a confession to make. I'm still a dreamer. I dream and I pray to God every day that in my time, I can see the death penalty abolished. But this dream cannot come true if all of you don't get involved in it. You are part of my dream now. You see, the problem with the death penalty is all about details, education. People need to know you do not deter crime. People need to know it costs too much. People need to know that is racist. People need to know that is cruel and unnecessary. We have alternatives. But the most important thing that people need to know, and very quickly, is that along at the state, this great state of Washington have it. Any state, any country, any nation, it always would be a risk to execute an innocent one. And you can always release an innocent man from prison. We don't have no problems with that. Or you can never, and I repeat, you can never release an innocent man from the grave. And that's why we got rid of segregation. And that's why we got rid of slavery. White, black, and brown together in harmony. We can get rid of this madness of the death penalty. So please, join me in my dream. I love you all. God bless you.
The documentary, my mama played a big role in it. The truth is, she stole the show, like always. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you, Mr. Melendez. So we have some time for some questions for about 20 minutes or so that you get on the videotape and so that we can all hear you. If you want to raise your hand, I'll bring you the microphone.
Hi, I'm Angie Franklin. How are you doing, sir?
Good.
I got here late. I wanted to ask, were you given any type of compensation for your 18 years?
That's a very good question. I will tell you exactly what they gave me. They gave me a pair of pants, a t-shirt, and $100. They never apologized. But the truth is, they had to give me nothing. I would have walked out there butt naked.
Did they do anything to the prosecutor that became a judge once you were released? Did they penalize them or bring that to light about the withheld evidence?
That's a very good question. I'm going to let my sister answer that one. And Julie Caruso, she knows it's coming.
Actually, it was the wonderful defense attorney who ended up being the judge. But in terms of the prosecutor, there was no disciplinary action ever taken against the prosecutor. In fact, he continued prosecuting cases for, how many more years?
I would
20,
say
30?
about 8. After I got out, about 8.
Well, no, after the conviction.
Oh. This S-17 and...
Yeah, he continued prosecuting. And in fact, a federal district court judge in another death penalty case, and in that case, the federal district judge overturned a death penalty conviction. It did involve the same prosecutor, and the district judge said that that prosecutor had a habit of withholding exculpatory evidence. So there were no repercussions. He continued practicing. He just retired about a year or two
About
ago.
a year ago. The only thing they did to him was, I remember now, the only thing they did to him was, when I got out, they took him out of the homicide cases. They didn't give him no more homicide cases. That was it. He just retired last year, right? About a year or two ago.
Anyone else?
I understand that on the X-wing, there are cells that have total sensory deprivation. Were you ever put in one of those?
Say that again, my friend.
On the X-wing on death row there in Florida, there are cells that have complete sensory deprivation. Were you ever placed in one of those? Or do you know of any?
Yeah, the box, when they punish you, let's say you get a disciplinary report, they put you in a cell that you cannot see nothing. There's a little, I had done little sometime in there to punish you. When you do something that you're supposed to be doing, have contraband, they put you in there. Then they got what they call death watch. That's when they sign the death warrant. That's a special cell too, that you have a 24 hours watch. The guard is in front of you, watching you for 24 hours. And in Florida, the sheriff, you can see the sheriff right there and from the cell. And sometimes some of the prisoners say, why you got me here watching that sheriff? And some of the guards, they can be nasty, you know, hostiles. And they say, well, that way you can start getting used to it. That's how cruel it can be. But some of them now.
There was one inmate who was in total sensory deprivation for over a year.
Any other questions?
Do you have any idea what the cost was to keep you incarcerated in your appeals and all maybe millions of dollars?
That's a good question, a very good question. It's very problematic, but the cost of the death penalty, I will let Judy explain that a little bit.
That is a very good question, because many people think that the death penalty is a lot cheaper than the alternative of life without the possibility of parole, and in fact it is significantly more expensive to have a death penalty system than it is to have a system with life without the possibility of parole. There was a study done in the Palm Beach Post specifically on the costs in Florida. It's an old study actually, so the costs are even higher than what they were in that study, and I think it was, what was it, around $51 million a year they would save if they replaced the death penalty with a life without parole sentence.
Plus California, how much?
In California, which would have the highest cost of the entire nation because they do have the largest death row in the country. They have over 720 people on death row in California. The LA Times did a study back in, I think it was about 2004, and in that study, like cost analysis, it showed that the taxpayers would actually save $114 million a year if the death penalty were replaced with life without the possibility of parole. At that point, they'd had, I believe it was 11 executions, and per execution, the cost was $250 million. Can you imagine what we could do with all that money? How much better we could protect our communities?
That's really good. Okay, no.
Thank you. Virtually all industrialized democracies on the planet today have ended capital punishment. What sort of insight has your experience given you into why capital punishment remains still so popular in this country?
Well, I would say because of the violence and the fear people have, and the prosecutors thinking that to control the violence in the United States, that the penalty can be the right tool, and they are wrong. I would also say the culture. We have to look at our culture. They used to execute people in here that's too cheap, chilling in the car game, stealing a car,
stuff like that. So we got to change that. I'm on a lot of things. You can ask something you want to do. That question.
I think it really is partly, like Juan said, fear. I think that many people are still just very fearful of violence in our communities, and that they are led to believe that the death penalty will actually keep them safer, which we know is not at all true. In fact, we could keep our communities a whole lot safer if we could use all that money that we would save for proven crime prevention programs. Actually, assisting law enforcement better, giving them more resources, better training, so they can investigate these cases and actually get the real perpetrators instead of getting it wrong so many times, which is what they're doing right now. So I think fear is a big thing. I also think that it's just that the violence is just such an integral part of the society, unfortunately, and it seems like because it's such a part of the society, it seems like violence is the only solution to violence. And we just know that that's not the solution. In terms of the world situation, 139 countries in the world have not abolished the death penalty. 2/3 of the world's countries have abolished the death penalty, in law or in practice. And more countries are abolishing. Turkey abolished to become a member of the European Union. We've just had country after country. Rwanda abolished. South Africa has abolished. Russia has abolished. And the US will abolish as well. It's going to take some time. The US is a fairly new country relative to the European countries. And it will evolve eventually, just as the European countries have done. And hopefully with the help of folks like yourselves, we can make this happen. But it's going to take a lot of hard work to educate the public. Once the public really becomes educated about the reality of the death penalty, they will not support it, but we have to educate.
I have two questions, actually. I was curious if you met other men on death row that were also innocent. And my second question is, as horrific as the whole thing is, what is just so especially heart-wrenching, is it true that you're not allowed to have any physical contact with your family? You can't touch people during visitation?
I forgot the first one. Well, it's mentioned 5 in the story. There are also we have an organization called Witness to Innocence, which around get us together twice a year, and I get to meet the ones that come out and stuff like that. And the second question, Julie? Oh, fortunately, Florida do let you have a contact basis. And I think it's Florida, and I think the state of Nevada. Also, it's only two states that let all the rest of them go.
Yeah, Washington does not permit contact visits.
Yeah. But they got some, I think it's only 2 that Florida is one of them. I don't know if it's Nebraska or Nevada, but it's only 2. I think it's a question over here too, is late.
Mine was not necessarily a question, it was more of a comment on what this gentleman over here was asking about the death penalty and why it has not been abolished here in this country. I would also have to say that because of capitalism and that it is such a moneymaker, that death makes money and it's very big business.
Right there, right there.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking and welcome to Olympia. I have 2 questions as well. The first one is, did you pursue a civil suit? And the second one is, what kind of connections do you still have with your brothers behind?
The first question, yesterday, Sue, for first I can say we lost, I don't know too much about it, I didn't even keep in touch with my lawyer because I don't even breathe on that. Florida, at that time, Florida did not pay no compensation when I got out. They changed a little bit, but they rounded it. Now you have to have DNA in the case. I don't have no DNA. You have to have a clean record. No prior felony, and that's the only way. And they pay you $50,000 per year. So I don't qualify for none of that. To answer the second question, I don't contact my friends, but I work. I'm trying to do, it's very hard for me to write them. If I write one, I have to write a lot of them. But they know what I'm doing. They know I'm doing the best I can to get the death penalty abolished, and I never forgot them.
Did anyone else have a question?
Yes, I do.
So it can be abolished by each state, and how many states have abolished it? And could it be abolished federally as well?
Yes, the death penalty does still exist federally. It exists in 34 states. It has been abolished now in 16 states. Illinois was the last state to abolish just this year. New Mexico, where we live, abolished in 2009. New Jersey abolished in 2007. I mean, this is like a domino chain, and it can really happen. It really can. We're seeing people, particularly politicians, starting to understand that the death penalty does not make any sense. In New Mexico, for example, we tried to work with a Republican governor, Gary Johnson. When he first came to office, he wanted to make New Mexico's death penalty just like our neighbors, Texas's. He said the death penalty is not working because it's not a deterrent, we don't do it quickly enough. We need to do it really quickly and be just like Texas, and that way it will be a deterrent and we'll save money that way too. When he left office, he publicly declared his opposition to the death penalty. 6 years later, actually he was there for 2 terms, so it was 8 altogether. We only really started working with him for about 4 years. But he completely flipped because of constant education, constant letters to the editor in the newspapers. We did have one execution that really did impact him because he had to sign that death warrant in that case. We had one execution in 41 years in New Mexico in 2001, and it was a volunteer. But anyway, Governor Gary Johnson is an example of how people can change when they change their views on the death penalty when they get educated. He learned about the problem of so many innocent people coming off of death row 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20 years after they've been convicted and sentenced to death. So he realized, because of that problem, that we couldn't cut the process. We couldn't make it a 2-year process. We couldn't make it like our neighbors, Texas's, because if we did that, we for sure would kill innocent people. So we realized we couldn't do that. He says, so it doesn't make sense. It's always going to be too expensive, so why do it? And it's not going to deter because it's going to take so long. He really flipped from one extreme to the other. Then our next governor was Governor Richardson, who ultimately, finally, after 2 terms, signed the bill to repeal the death penalty. And that was constant work, educating Governor Richardson. We would meet with him. He was open to meeting. He was open to being educated. He started off, he wasn't quite as extreme as Governor Johnson had been, but he started off saying, well, I support the death penalty, in really extreme cases and bad cases. And, I can support it as long as we can be sure that it's being fairly applied, as long as we can be sure that people facing death receive adequate representation of counsel, and as long as we can be sure that we're not executing innocent people. So fundamentally, he believed in the death penalty in Disney World. right? Because that doesn't exist, it's never gonna exist. The criteria that he set forth for a death penalty that was acceptable does not exist, and it cannot exist. And he became educated throughout the years, finally understood that that death penalty couldn't exist, and he signed a bill to abolish the death penalty in 2009. We've got to get the governor to sign that bill. We've got to pass it through the legislature, and then it goes to governor.
And once we abolish in enough states, then the Supreme Court will say it is not a rule of we need about 30.
And we get it.
So we're over halfway, we're at 16. And Washington can be right up there with one of the next states.
Go ahead.
How has the advent of DNA affected the change of opinion and the pace of getting rid of the death penalty?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question. The advent of DNA has absolutely impacted the fight to abolish the death penalty. DNA has shown us that, you know, factually innocent people have been convicted and sentenced to death. Of the 138 people who have been exonerated from death row since 1973, only 17 of them had DNA in their cases. For them, obviously, it was phenomenal. What we have to remember about DNA, as wonderful a tool as it has been to show us the tremendous problems in the system and to show us that we have come so close to executing innocent people, the problem is that it is limited to the extent that it's only available in a very small percentage of murder cases, less than 20%. And so that's sort of a limitation of it, but it has been absolutely critical to the movement to abolish the death penalty and to reform the criminal justice system in general. Because it has shown us the areas, the problem areas, eyewitness testimony, false confessions, junk science. It's shown us in many areas where we have problems.
One more question?
Okay.
I just don't want to let this night pass without mention of Troy Davis, and we can just so hope that his death really will move abolition forward. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming this evening, and
We're very grateful to have Mr. Melendez along with activist Judy Caruso here with us this evening in Olympia. They're on a statewide tour to educate people about the death penalty. And Mr. Melendez has been gracious enough to speak this evening to us for free, but we're really hoping that through donations we can cover his travel expenses, and they came up from New Mexico, so travel expenses and his usual honorarium. So we have, let's see, during question and answers, he'll speak for about 50 minutes, and then during a question and answer period, we're going to pass around some baskets, which you can put any donations into. And if you'd like to write a check, you can just make it out to Juan Melendez. And also, if you'd like to donate to our committee, check with the committee folks back at the table in the back. There's another basket out there, and that would be for donations to our committee. But anything you put in the baskets that go around, or some other baskets out by the door if you need to leave early, will go completely to Mr. Melendez and his efforts. Let's see, so Mr. Melendez was innocent of the crime he was convicted of, and he spent nearly 18 years on death row in Florida. And when he was released in 2002, this made him the 99th.
You are wanted for unlawfully fly to avoid prosecution with warrants for your arrest for first-degree murder and armed robbery in the state of Florida. So they read me some rights, and they slapped some handcuffs on me, and they threw me in a police car, and they took me to a federal prison. A week or so after my arrival, they took me to court in front of the magistrate, a federal judge, and he was talking about extradition. But I did not know what extradition means. I was naive to the law, naive to the language. This is the type of English I knew at that time. If I say 5 words in English, believe me, my friends, 3 of them would be cuss words. So the bond interpreted to me to explain to me what extradition means. And all he told me in Spanish was, you either waive it or fight it. They're going to take you back anyway. So I started thinking, I'm not a killer. My mama did not raise no killers. I will waive it. And as soon as they see this ugly face in Florida, they will let me go. But how wrong I was. So I waived extradition in the state. I mean from the state of Pennsylvania all the way back to the state of Florida. A week or so after my arrival, they took me to court in front of a judge. And he was reading the charges to me. You've been indicted, arrested for first-degree murder and armed robbery, and the state of Florida is sinking the death penalty against you, the electric chair. A week or so after that, they took me right back to court with the same judge, this time to court appoint a lawyer for me, a public defender. The truth is, I'm not O.J. Simpson. I don't have money to hire lawyers. This public defender, I cannot hardly understand what he's saying because they never give me an interpreter. But he used to pat me in the back and tell me that everything is going to be all right. You're going home. I didn't understand that going home stuff. I should go home. I did not commit the crime. So now we're going to trial. Monday, we start picking the jury. Tuesday, we're still picking jury. And after they pick 11 whites and 1 African-American person, no Hispanic, and I'm Hispanic, they read instruction to the jury how to conduct themselves in a capital murder case with the sinking, the death penalty. Wednesday, that's when the evidence come in. And this is what they had against me. They have what they call a police informant, what they call in the streets, a snitch. He claimed that I confessed the crime to him. This police informant, this snitch, also implicates
death row inmate in the country to be exonerated and released due to innocence since 1973. And he was number 99, and you have to remember that number is a lot bigger now. And since his release, Mr. Melendez has traveled throughout the world sharing his story. And those who have heard him always talk about the courage and the faith and the forgiveness that his story is about, that it represents. But we also want to remember an important from his story, just about the ongoing problems with the death penalty, that we use all over this country and right here in Washington State. So at that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Juan Melendez.
My name is Juan Melendez. Before I start, I want to thank all of you for coming over here. I want to thank Miss Emmy and the organization that made this event possible. I want to thank Judy Caruso, who traveled with me most of the time doing this work, and of course, God and all of you. My name is Juan Melendez. I am the number 99 person in the nation to be released and exonerated from Florida death row for a crime I did not commit. It's 138 of us. There has been 1,260 plus executions, many of them in the state of Texas. And only God knows how many of them did not have the luck that I had and the rest of the 137. Also, as I tell my story, you feel like crying, cry. And you feel like laughing, please laugh. I love smiling faces. The only favor I ask for all of you is this. Please don't fall asleep on me. It was a beautiful day. Got it. It was on a Monday, May the 2nd, 1984. While my co-workers and I was eating lunch on the apple tree, we hear noise in the orchards that did not belong to the orchards. 8 police cars riding the hills, FBI agents. And they stopped in front of us. And they came out of the car with weapons pointing at us. And they told us to hit the ground, and we did. Then they called my name, but I'm scared to get up because of the weapons that was pointing at me. But I raised my arms. Then they told me to get up and walk toward them, and I did. When I got in front of them, they told me to open my mouth. They wanted to see if I had a missing tooth. I showed it to them. The tooth is still missing. Then they told me to roll the sleeves from my shirt, from my left arm. They want to see a tattoo, and I showed it to them. Then they say, yes, you are the man we are looking for.